Howdy folks, Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here with a look at your tropical update for June 25th of 2019. As always, tropical update brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters. We actually have some new information to talk about. A couple of different things are shaking up in the tropics. Nothing big and drastic. I'm going to get real close to the camera. Nothing big and drastic, thank goodness. But we are, as we march through the hurricane season, of course, stuff just starts happening a little more frequently between everything. So keep that in mind as we head through July and get toward August. There are going to be fewer and fewer of these tropical updates where I get on and say, hey, not much to talk about out there. And this is kind of just the beginning. And the proof is in the pudding, as they say, as we look at hurricane frequency. As we move through parts of June, we got our little bump kind of here in the middle to end of June. We get kind of a little bit of a lull at the beginning of July and then shoot right up as we head through August. So again, this is kind of just the start, the beginning of what's to come as we head through the next couple months. And right now, we're generally looking into the Gulf of Mexico, the Northwest Caribbean, off the East Coast. As we get into July, we look down into the Caribbean, a little bit further away from home, and then as we get into August, we kind of open the door for pretty much everywhere. Gulf of Mexico, the entire Caribbean, off the East Coast, all the way out to Bermuda, and then as you make your way past the Greater and Lesser Antilles and into the open Atlantic out there. The reason, well, your sea surface temperatures and your temperatures at depth are starting to warm up. We've got upper 80s into the Gulf of Mexico. We're now into the mid 80s as you get out into the open Atlantic. Still the low 80s as you head toward the Eastern Caribbean and out truly kind of into the open Atlantic toward Africa. So it's still a little too early to talk about stuff out here, but a little bit closer to home, there is plenty of heat for these tropical waves and disturbances to work with. Now, right now, we've got a cluster of thunderstorms just off the east coast of Texas, floating around into the Gulf of Mexico. These are going to kind of continue to drift off to the northwest. That'll bring us some chances for rain as we head through the evening across parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And then most of this stuff, by the way, should stay out into the Gulf of Mexico and continue to drift kind of due east, but little pieces of it are going to drift. You can already start to see some of that drift off northeast. Not tropically related, but just kind of a little tidbit about the forecast. As we look out into the open Atlantic, again, things still a little too cool as you head out there, but I will say some thunderstorm activity across parts of the Caribbean, a fair amount of shear in here. You can see how all the clouds are getting kind of pulled back off northeast, so we haven't quite ridged over across most sections of the open Atlantic quite yet because it's, again, a little too early in the year. Just off the coast of Africa, we had a big old wave come flying off yesterday, and look at how fast some of these things just evaporate because your water temperature out here is floating somewhere around 78 to about 82 degrees. There's just not enough heat as compared to the land, which is, you know, in the 80s, 90s, and low 100s. There's just not enough heat to keep these showers and thunderstorms moving. Okay, so what's going to happen as we head through the next couple of days? I've changed the view for our 700 millibar moisture 850 vorticity to a little bit closer to home. Hattiesburg, Houston, Miami, Cancun, Havana. Here's your Yucatan, Cuba, Florida, the northern Gulf Coast to Texas and Mexico. So this is through tomorrow afternoon. We got a little bit of dry air in the mid-levels out here, some more out into the Caribbean and just off the East Coast. We are a little more moist, though, as you head through parts of the eastern Gulf of Mexico. But I want to highlight something. You see this little piece of energy that comes dragging off to the south across parts of Georgia and Alabama, and kind of it's going. There's a little ridge of high pressure here at the surface, and it kind of retrogrades and kind of peels back off to the west, and then eventually to the northwest around this surface area of high pressure. We're going to have to watch that little piece of vorticity, a little low-level spin in the atmosphere as it kind of curlicues back off to the west, to fancy weather term retrograde. As it kind of pulls back to the west, if it does so at the same time that we get one of these little MCSs that comes pile driving into the Gulf of Mexico, we may end up in a situation where one kind of lines up underneath one of the other, and we kind of have to pay a little bit of extra attention to it. Again, like I said at the top of this thing, nothing imminent, nothing terrible out there, but like stuff's happening now that we need to pay close attention to. At the same time, we also have some clusters of storms that kind of drift up the east coast of Mexico and toward Houston. that may have some semblance of organization as well. Again, nothing imminent, nothing bad, just something that's worth watching. Back in behind that, I will say, as we head through Wednesday, July 3rd, we do get another shot of some dry air into the Gulf of Mexico, and then again another shot of dry air into the Caribbean, which should put the brakes on anything that may try and develop out there at that point. So again, we got two little pieces of something we got to keep an eye on as we head through the end of June, the beginning of July, but outside of that, things are still pretty quiet. That's your tropical update for June 25th of 2019, brought to you by good folks at Pine Belt Gutters.